You're listening to the Hella Well with Danielle show, a podcast taking women of color on a journey exploring all things wellness and travel related. We're all about showing you how to put on your oxygen mask first and creating lasting self-care habits that will free you to travel the world and live the life you truly desire, and not one you have to fake loving. I'm your host, Danielle Washington. Now let's buckle up and start this journey. You'll often hear me talk about travel as a form of self-care on this podcast or, as a form of therapy. For goodness sake, I even wrote a book called Travel is My Therapy. So around this time in September, any other year, I would have gone on several different trips. But if you're like me, you've been grounded due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But things are opening up. However, I'm still not sure how I feel about traveling. And so, I wanted to bring in someone who I thought would be able to really give us the ins and outs of, what it means to travel right now, whether it is going through the airports, going on a plane, and like what to do when you do get to places and what places are actually open. So today we have Dr. Yvette McQueen, aka the Travel Doctor, who's going to come and talk to us. And she is a global physician on a mission to educate us about health, travel wellness, and disease prevention. She is an emergency physician and she works across the U.S. and Caribbean and actually is recording this from the Caribbean where she is working right now. She travels with groups as a physician, ensuring their health and safety during travel, and also helps people while they're traveling international. So she is well versed in this. She is already traveling and she comes with so much great knowledge. I think if you are even considering the ideal or when you are ready to travel, this is a conversation and these are the tips you really are going to want to have in your tool belt. So let's get ready for the show. I'm super excited to have Dr. Yvette here with me today, talking about a subject that is, I think, dear to both of our hearts, but it's definitely dear to my heart, is we're talking about traveling during COVID. So it's my birthday season, and this time of year, I'm usually traveling the world. My birthday is 9/11, and I don't like to be in the States during this time for many different reasons. And so right now, I have been afraid of traveling. And, with Dr. Yvette being this travel doctor, I wanted her to come on here and talk to the audience about just what it means to travel during this time frame, what should we be considering, and like when is it safe? And so I want to start off asking you with like, are you traveling right now?
Yes, I'm currently on a trip as we speak.
Okay, so where are you currently?
I am currently in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands, because I'm here working at the hospital.
Okay. And so as a doctor, but as someone who has traveled to 50 million countries and travel is your life and also your profession, like how did you feel about traveling during this time frame? Like, did you feel any nervousness? And how did you know like when like I feel good to travel? Like what was the litmus test for you?
So when it first started, when COVID-19 first started in March and they locked everything down, I actually had just returned back home. I live in Atlanta. I had returned home from working in Missouri because I travel around the United States and work at different hospitals. At that time, it was just coming around. I had investigated. I said, oh, well, maybe we need to sit still. And of course, by divine providence, God said, you will sit still because he canceled my job for the next 2 months. So I was actually around the Atlanta area in the stay-at-home place. But as things started to open it up, I did travel to Washington, D.C., but I chose to drive there because at that point, it was still iffy about how the airlines were cleaning and packing people in the plane. So in May, I drove to Washington, D.C. To relieve some family members, help them with some small kiddos. And it was a straight drive. I didn't encounter anyone. I had everything in the car. My first flight post-COVID was actually in June. And I actually had to fly an alternative airline that I normally don't fly. And they're known to pack people in the plane. They said they would do social distancing, but it didn't. And it really bothered me So on my return flight, I suited up with a double mask, the head shield, face shield, everything.
You had like the whole gamut. You're like, I'm Naomi Cameling this. I'm team. I love it.
Yeah, but because it's airborne, I had everything covered because you have to protect your mouth, nose, eyes, and ears. So I actually too had on a head wrap. Don't necessarily need to wear the whole hazmat suit as far as you're wiping things down, they're cleaning the seats, and if you feel uncomfortable about your clothes touching the seats, then what you just do is you just change your clothes when you get to your destination. Now, I flew last week, but I flew one of the airlines that have increased their customer care. They've increased their cleaning. They increased their boarding process. They're only selling 60% of their flights. And I know people are like, well, the middle seat doesn't matter. True, you're not 6 feet apart, but it's less people on the plane. So you think about it, when it's less people on the plane, it makes a difference, less opportunity for things to float in the air.
Yeah, it's funny. So I was reading, I think it was the New York Post had posted an article about, airplanes are breeding pool for COVID. And I'm just like, see, oh my God.
Actually, no. Actually, I felt safer on the airplane than I did going grocery shopping.
And it doesn't
Because
surprise me. It doesn't surprise me at this point. But why would you say that?
Because so at the grocery store, a lot of the states, including, I live in Georgia, there's no mandate of a mask. So you get a 50-50 mix of whether people are wearing masks or people not wearing masks. Even some of the cashiers don't wear their masks properly. Masks should cover the nose and the mouth. They have it under their nose, or they have it. I've had to tell people before, as a healthcare worker, please wear it properly. Where on the plane, it is mandated. It's mandated that you wear boarding. It's mandating during the flight, unless you're drinking something. And they have put people off or banned people for not following the rules. Also, I've watched their cleaning process, and it is much better than what it was pre-COVID. Trust me.
Right.
And also, right, and also the HEPA filters. So HEPA filters, people talk about recycled air. When they say recycled, they mean the air is being cycled from the inside of the plane to the outside of the plane. So there's always a 50-50 exchange of the air from inside the plane with the outside of the plane every 2 to 4 minutes. So there's fresh air flowing through the airplane.
That makes me feel better. Like I did feel like, I was talking to people in one of my Facebook groups. I'm like, let's be real. It's probably cleaner than we've ever seen because, you've gotten to one of those seats and you look and you can visibly see and you only can imagine. I'd hate to black light the planes prior to see what it was looking like. So I did feel like the planes themselves were clean. I was like reading articles like that. And that's the thing, I'm a CNN junkie now. And like, I haven't been a CNN junkie since I was in politics. And like, I watch CNN every day. I think that is the show. That's probably the only thing I do watch. And so I'm watching all these pandemic things. I'm like, oh my God. Now I was watching yesterday. They were talking about, long-term effects and people having like memory issues and all these other things. I'm like, I just don't want to get this, but I hella want to travel. Like I need to get out of this country. And I'm not saying I am saying this. I need to get out of this country. I need to breathe. I mean, not only am I in California where there's the wildfires and today it looks orange. It is like Armageddon. We're about to die outside and it is middle of the day. That being said, I just need to go. But like, we're now in a state where our American passports, which I feel like they were like black cards, we can go anywhere. We were privileged. Now we're like, sorry.
Raya.
Yes. And I hate that. Like, we can't go to so many, like, we had and I don't think people realize the privileges we had as having American passport. Now it's like we are like excommunicated with scarlet letter A for America. Nope, not entering.
Yeah. So when people say they want to travel, particularly if they want to travel outside the United States, I'm not shaming. I don't know why people need to travel, my thing is if you need to travel, you feel like you need to travel, then do it. But I say travel responsibly. And
Yes.
that means, first of all, research where you're going. So decide where you're going. And like you said, will they let U.S. citizens in? What's the requirement? Do I need to take a COVID test before I get? And some people just says a COVID negative test. Some people say a COVID negative test within 72 hours. Some of them say within 7 days. Make sure you know what's going on. You make sure you know what the lodging responsibilities are, what if there's going to be tourism, or is everything really locked down and you're just going to be seeing the sites on your own. And then I also like people to say if they're going to an international country, check out what their healthcare capability is. Because if you get there and get sick, you don't want to put a strain on their healthcare system if they can't even take care of their own citizens.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think people don't think about that when looking at destinations. There's like, okay, this country's opened up. Great, I can go. And they're not looking, like, for example, someone was like, oh, Costa Rica open. I'm like, you might want to look a little bit closer. They're only opening up to certain states. And then talking to you, they're like, no, they're only open to certain states. And then you have a 14-day quarantine. You have all these other things. And so it's like people aren't looking into, because I know I think Maldives was that way at first too, like they had the 14 days. I'm like, what's the purpose of going to paradise if you're stuck in quarantine for 14 days? Question.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So I say that, because with the USVI, or the United States Virgin Islands, St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. John, for a while in June and July, they were open for travelers. They had started to open their outdoor restaurants, and some of their tourist sites and activities started to open up. As they was opening up, people came in, and of course, their numbers increased because people start bringing COVID here. They actually had it under control, and they only had one case in May, and they had it under control. As tourists came in, it started opening up. So what they decided was to require everyone to have a COVID negative test within 72 hours. And even after the July 4th weekend, they still had an increase of cases. So they went back down under curfew and lockdown until after this holiday, for the simple fact, like, we don't want tourism, to the point where if you went on a hotel site, they would not accept your reservation.
And that makes sense. But I look at places like Mexico, which isn't asking for a COVID test. And I'm like, I don't think I want to go somewhere where they're not even bothering checking.
Well, I hear they're not even testing their own citizens, because I have a lot of friends that actually live in Mexico
Yeah.
now, and a lot of U.S. citizens. And there's not a lot of testing doing there. But you got to think, the hotel workers, the tourist workers, the cab workers. If you're bringing it in, you're exposing them, or they've been exposed to other people that can expose you. And once again, Mexico healthcare system. Where are you going? What's their hospital like? Does their hospital speak English? Can the hospital take care of you? If you really get sick, what's their ICU bed status? Will you be able to come back to the United States? And most travel insurances have a COVID exempt policy.
I was going to
So
talk to you about
before,
that. I knew
yeah,
that. Yeah.
because before they were like, oh, we can fly you back home, you're sick. Now they're like, yeah, if you're sick for another reason, we'll cover your, travel back to the United States or your medical claim. But if it's COVID related, they're not covering it.
Yeah. I mean, the travel insurance, just COVID changed everything about travel insurance. This is a
Hmm.
whole new world out there. So I remember like when it first started, people trying to get back and all those other things. I'm like, yeah, it's just really different. So how do you, what's your recommendation and how should people go about finding the right destination for them besides, looking up to see about the health insurance, looking up to see like what are the, whether tests is needed and stuff like that.
Well, I basically say, once again, look at what's your purpose of going. Is it relaxation? Is it to do tourist things? Is it for, are there, people are still having destination weddings, believe it or not. So what's your purpose of going? Where are you going to stay? So most hotels, I'll talk about the United States hotels, because those are the ones, the guidelines. I don't know what the international ones are, if they actually have guidelines. But most of the hotels have changed where they have extra cleaning in the high contact places like the elevators. They no longer do buffet. In in restaurant dining is out. So if they have an outside patio, you can. Room service is a drop and go. They don't come in your room. You order and it comes right to your room. Uh, Cleaning is usually very limited. They ask for you not to be in the room when they clean your room,
Let's
and
be
it's
real,
probably
we're
only
busy
once.
cleaning anyway.
Yes. And it's only once or twice a week, actually. So it's not daily anymore. So housekeeping is not daily. So those are the hotels. If you consider Airbnb or vacation rental by owner, or whichever site you decide to use, or renting a house, most of them have guidelines where there needs to be a 24-hour turnaround between customers so that adequate cleaning is done. Most of them have, they're not renting to people under 25 because of the party problems. And they're not renting to parties over 8 or 10 people because that's usually the max of gathering people require.
That
So
makes
you just, look at Airbnb, I take my own clean. I've stayed at Airbnb during the pandemic and I just took my own cleaning supplies. It was spotless when I got there, but I still felt like cleaning it myself. And I took my own sheets and towel and I was fine.
I feel like you're like me, where even before the pandemic, I was still bringing my own cleaning supplies. I probably wasn't bringing it to the level I'm about to do now if I travel, but like plan either Airbnb or a hotel. Like, what are the things that you're bringing? Were you bringing before, and what are you definitely bringing now to make sure that you're cleaning where you're located? And like, and what are you cleaning? Like, I know, like, I'll clean the remote control, the doorknobs, and things people don't think about. I was doing that prior to the pandemic. I could only imagine what I'm about to do when I start traveling.
So yeah, most of my routine actually, like you said, I did it pre-COVID anyway. So my cleaning supplies, I either carry with me, if I'm in the United States, I usually carry with me like the Clorox cleanup or something like that. If you can't find that spick and span, something. So it doesn't have to have Clorox; it can have ammonia too. And a lot of people have been saying, "I just need Clorox," but that's not it. If you have wipes and there's not making the Lysol and Clorox wipes anymore, I tell people to get the unscented baby wipes and pour a 10% Clorox bleach solution in there and soak it. It works the same as a Clorox wipes.
Excellent. I hope you guys got that tip. That was
I'll say it again, unscented baby wipes, and you take a 10% Clorox solution, so 9 parts water, 1 part Clorox, and put that in with the wipes, and it's the same thing as a Clorox wipe.
and much.
So yeah, I take it and in a hotel. So the typical things like you said, doorknobs, light switch, remote. Let's see what's up. Remote. Things in the bathroom, the lamps, anything that you're going to be touching a lot. Telephones. Those are what I usually wipe. Let's see. Do I? I'm not. I don't take the Lysol spray so much, but I always have deodorant spray with me just for air freshener.
Mhm.
And with the only thing I'm taking differently now in the Airbnbs is the sheets and towels.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I was thinking about. And it's funny because like I have a friend who has a linen company and her sheets are bomb. They're in bamboo linen. And so I've thought about traveling with them, but because I'm team carry on, I'm like, I don't think I can carry that. But now I've been thinking, because as I've been kind of looking about traveling, I'm like, I'm going to bring my own sheets. That means I need to bring either a bigger bag or find a way to pack less.
Or you may consider the what they call the sleep sack. So there's something called the sleep sack where it actually comes in like it can either be a little tube, a little pack, very like 5 by 8-ish, very small that you can put in your carry out. But when you pull it out, it actually looks like a sleeping bag, but it's sheets material. So it's a thin material, whether it's linen or satin, and you lay it on top of their sheets. So you cover yourself with it.
And that works because honestly, I've been in a hotel and low key I fell asleep in a chair. No, like a chair that you would sit, a desk chair, not like a comfy chair, like a desk chair, and I've kept it moving. So I don't need much in comfort. I just need a place to put my head down. in that sense. So we talked about, which I love, talked about the hotel versus the Airbnb. I want to circle back and look at airports because I know that TSA has made some changes. Like I know now you can actually wear a mask through security. What other things are you seeing or what are the recommendations? Because I feel like, are people really social distancing in airports? Because I feel like that was my biggest fear. I'm like, when this all happened, it's like, because when people know that their number is number 4, but when they hear one call, they're like lining up and like crowding in front of the gate. And so like, how are you seeing any airlines handling stuff like that? Are people just climbing up together as they normally did, or are they really social distancing? And how do you protect
I
yourself
think
from
they're
there?
social. Yeah, I think they're social distancing. So I fly in and out of Atlanta Airport a lot. With the TSA now, they, especially after a couple of their people caught COVID, they
Yeah.
actually have a 3-sided plexiglass. So they require for you to put your boarding pass on the scanner yourself, so they don't touch it. You do pull down your mask so they can see you for your ID and they check. But other than that, it's usually about the same. They do have the markers and the line, so people are paying attention to that. If you have clear, instead of doing the fingerprints, they now do the retinal scan because when you signed up with both. So they just do the retinal scan now. They ask for you when you put things in the bins to make them compact. So you know how people used to pull out keys and used to pull out belts and stuff like that. They say, please put everything in a bag so you have less contact with the bin if it's been exposed. And that's why another reason they asking people not to have a lot of carry-on luggage and just to check the bag, because two, the flight attendants can no longer help you put your bag up. So if you have a heavy bag, you're on your own. The flight attendants can no longer help you. The seats are all marked up in the lounges or the gates. They're all marked every other seat or every 2 seats. So they say, don't sit here, don't sit here, don't sit here. As far as lining up, people have been very courteous. Every now and then you get someone that's, don't want to follow the rules. And what I do is I put my bag or my luggage in front of me if I have it, or put it behind me. So I can um, control how close I am to the person in front of me. And then I just stick my luggage way out in the back so they
I
can't
was doing
even
that
run up on me.
pre-COVID, so yes.
Yeah. Some airlines are boarding the planes from back to front. And they do it slowly. They only board like 5 or 6 people at a time and then stop. Other airlines are just saying, yeah, zone, come on. So it depends on the airlines and it's the responsibility. It's just, I've told people to back up for me nicely.
Please don't get arrested. But I will screenshot. I'm like, I know her, and I'm posting it.
But yeah, so I think people are being responsible. I think it's more now than it was in June. So when I flew in June, people really wasn't recognizing the severity of the whole you need to be
Yeah.
6 feet and wear masks. When I flew last week, people are so much cooperating so much better.
It's just funny for me, like I talk to people in different states and different countries, as I do have friends in other countries and stuff like that, and hearing what's going on in their world. Living in California and living in the Bay Area, I feel like we're so on lockdown that, I look at Atlanta and I feel like I want to pass out even the thought of people not wearing masks. I could not imagine being in a grocery store without masks. So then I think about going somewhere internationally. Well, what if people don't have the same feelings as Californians do of we need to be protected. So that's what's kind of held me back. And then I started thinking about like, okay, you get on a plane, you get to the airport, you get through that, you get on the plane, you're good. And then once you're on the ground, like then you have ground transportation. And are you going to a beach and how are you eating? And like those are the things I kind of start worrying or thinking about. So do you have any tips on like because you're certain places once you get from a plane, you may need to take a bus, you may need to take a tram, you may need to take a taxi, or a Uber or something like that? Like, what is your kind of thoughts on those things?
Well, my thing is that, well, first of all, if you're going somewhere, most of the requirements are that you're going to need a COVID negative test. So it's a little relieving that I was like, okay, most people on the plane had this COVID negative test because to land here, you have to have one. I wear a mask if I'm like in transportation in a closed space, you're not outdoors with someone. Now, I do have some friends that are living in Croatia. Actually, they got stuck there in March and they decided to just stay and they rented an apartment. So they had a lockdown, but now they're a country that's open. They're doing things without masks. They're eating without masks. They're going to restaurants. They're not right. So they're under control. So once again, investigate your destination and see what their numbers are. Remember, they said that is if their COVID percentage of cases is less than 10%, that's when you're opening up and being social again. So look at what their number of COVID cases, COVID positive versus deaths, where you going, and it just you may just have to go with the flow of what the local environment is doing.
Yeah, with me, when I was looking initially at places and kind of before things were really opening up, I was watching the numbers and like I was like positive, like, oh, Greece is going to go down. I'm like, Greece had some of the best numbers. And I'm like, was so surprised. And so looking at stuff like that, I'm like, I'm a beach person. So thinking about beaches here. So our beaches have been sometimes open, sometimes closed. Like, recently I love my burners. So but like 1,000+ burners for Burning Man. People who couldn't go to Burning Man went to the beach in San Francisco, and then our beaches got closed down right after. So, do you have any tips for beach goers?
Yes, well, beachgoers choose the beach you want to go to, find out if it's open, like you said, some of them closed, and just learn how to social distance. I have some family members that live in the Hilton Head area. And at first it was overcrowded and now it's starting to reduce, but they learned to go to the beach early and mark out their spot. And they put their chairs and mark out their the towels and they put things around them so that no one can come near them. They just had a line of marker. So they would get there early and do that. People are doing pretty good at beaches now, particularly since classes are back in and school back in session. But just mark out your area. And once again, it takes about research.
And so, okay, so you go on the trip, you've had some fun, or you just relax. So for me, it's like, no matter where I go, I'm not planning on doing a bunch of touristy things. It's just not where I am right now in general. But I would love just to be somewhere warmer where I can physically breathe outside versus thinking, oh my God, the sky is orange and we're all about to go away. Is there any tips for like what you would say for when you come back? Like, are you quarantining yourself, self-quarantining yourself after you're coming back from places? Or are you just kind of going back to your normal merry ways and keep it pushing?
Well, what I usually do, particularly since I deal with patients, when I come back, I either quarantine myself, or I shouldn't say quarantine, I self isolate myself for 14 days to make sure I don't have symptoms before I interact with my family members. Or I wait 5 days and take another test. So you have to wait 5 to 6 days after possible exposure to see if the test is actually valid. Because if you've had a possible exposure yesterday and you take a test today, it shows up negative. It's not going to tell anything. You still have to wait 5 to 6 days after possible exposure.
Yeah,
So
actually,
that's what I usually do.
I just took my first COVID test. That was real. It was real. Like people were saying, it tickles your brain. I'm like, okay, I don't know what tickling means to you, but that was not a tickle.
It hurts more on the left side because the left side of your nose doesn't go straight back.
Yeah, I don't know which side. All I know, the tears were coming out. I was like, "Look," she's like, don't quit. I'm like, I'm trying. Like, you act like this is just a walk through a park. But yeah, this was super, super helpful. I feel like I'm hoping that by listening to this, people will get an idea of how to make the decision, what's right for them, like when to travel, where to travel, and things to consider. The travel, I miss travel. And I don't think I think there's going to be a new norm. I don't think we're going to go back to whatever it was. There is going to be a new norm. And, just like there was a new norm after 9/11, not many people think about it. We weren't going through all these, TSA things before. It was much easier, but we don't think about it now because it's just what we know. So I think there'll come a time when we get into what is the new norm post all of this. But
right.
Yeah.
And destinations are going to have different requirements because they found some of the destinations that felt like they had overabundance of tourism. And I was going to say like Croatia and Thailand, they're changing some of their requirements about how many people can come into certain destinations just to keep the tourist place clear and clean and pure and have enough activity for their own local citizens.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, over tourism is definitely real. And so it's interesting to see how that plays out. I did remember looking at Thailand, and one of the requirements is that you had to have like $10,000 or something in like either it's like, I don't know if it was an insurance or was it something, but basically you needed to make sure you showed you had a certain amount of money to be able to take care of yourself if you got COVID while you were there. And I'm just like, again, it's like this is a new norm. And each country and each place will play out in time what we end up seeing and how things are showing up. But I'm hopeful.
That's because countries, when they quarantine you, people don't realize. They were like, okay, we're gonna put you in quarantine, but you pay for it yourself.
Yep.
People don't realize that. Yeah.
Yep. So I was like, I'll read the fine print, people. Do your research. Do your research. If you get nothing else, before you jump on a plane or you book anything, do your research about, what are the accommodations doing to keep you clean? Like, what are the requirements that, for going to places? And what do you need to bring with you to make sure that you're keeping yourself safe? Because it starts with you. It truly does. Like, I know me as a traveler, I wasn't going to be out there, girls gone wild, mask free, doing cartwheels and kissing and hugging everyone. That wasn't, that's not who I am as a traveler anyway. But, I know this is the new norm and, this has been really helpful. Before we go, Dr. Yvette, I ask everyone these same questions at the end of the show. And so I want to make sure we get your answer. So these are, these quick fire questions for you. You ready?
Okay.
All right. So first question, I think this is, probably really important right now, is aisle or window?
Oh, definitely window.
What's always in your travel bag?
Cleaning wipes and my stethoscope.
What is self-care to you?
Being relaxed and calm, whether I'm reading a book or just sitting watching TV.
And what's one piece of advice you give to your younger self?
Trust yourself. Trust your instincts.
Beautiful. I think right now, I'm trusting my instincts. My instinct says, go to LA. Thank you so much for being on here. I really, really appreciate it. How can people, if they want to get in touch with you and learn more about you as a travel doctor? You have so many great tools to help people. So I want to make sure that people know how to reach you.
Okay. So I'm on all social media at Yvette McQueen, MD. Also, my website is YvetteMcQueenMD.com. And if you want some free tips about traveling during the pandemic, go to healthytraveltips.com. And that's a free PDF you can download.
Fabulous. Thank you so much again. And stay safe where you are. Enjoy the sun where you are. Breathe in some fresh air where you are. All for me. I adore you. Thank you again for everything.
Thank you for having me. Ciao.
Ciao.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Hello Well with Danielle show. Make sure to visit our website, hellowellwithdanielle.com, where you can subscribe to our show on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music and never miss an episode. Also, you can follow us on social media at Hello Well with Danielle on Facebook and Instagram, and Hello Well Danny on Twitter. And if you like hella love the show and got some good nuggets out of it, know that I'm not too proud to ask for you to please leave a rating or review on iTunes so that we can continue to expand our reach and help other women of color. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you next week. Ciao.